by this time. Why do we say this? Because of the kind of economic program that Willard had. He was talking about taking off regulations, but what he means by that is the coal-fire plants, the other polluters would have been polluting nilly-lilly, and at the same time, you would have all these climatic changes that you're having now, droughts here, rains there, iceberg days other places, would just continue on. And as to what military schemes he would be in, who knows? But the problem is the budget. Now, if you're going to cut the budget, so what do you cut? Well, you cut health care, as Texas Perry has done. He's starving his own troops there. That would be the result of it. But worse than that, in a global economy, Willard Romney's programs would not work. Would Willard Romney have created some jobs? Yes, but he would have destroyed other jobs because he would have so imbalanced the economy, the environmental ecosystem, that he literally, for every $1 billion that he made, he would lose $1 trillion. And people have to understand, when they look at the rates of unemployment as far as, participation rate, it is very close to what it was under G.W. Bush. But you weren't told of that at that time. It's called the real number of employed. But anyway, nonetheless, that was not out there. That has not improved much. But you have to realize G.W. Bush caused a depression. And the Great Depression, it took them more than 10 years to get out. But in this present economy, it takes much, much longer. Will some of these jobs return? Yes. But we have, like Thomson Reuters, where the jobs have disappeared or will be disappearing from there. Will they return to Thomson Reuters? No. More than likely not. And even if they do, there will be less IT people if they would come back in. So with new technologies coming out there, structural differences, no matter what the song and dance scheme they come up with, and they'll say, well, unions cost too much. That's a bunch of hooey. Because no employer is going to pay a worker more than they have to. And as far as here's one last thing here, and we'll get out of here and go on to these other people, is the cost of insurance. Now, under Obamacare, Affordable Care Act, the pricing and the insurance operators are all private. They are the Blue Cross, Blue Shields, etc. of the world. They are private enterprises. They set their rates. Yes, they have some guidelines, but they do set their rates, and their rates have been going up. But that was going up before Obamacare. So because of the problem with the site, you don't hear that anymore because they fixed the site. Now, in some of the state exchanges, there were problems there, but that's to the contractors. They had the HPs, IBMs, and various others there, Oracles, but literally did not know what they're doing. And some states are recuperating their monies that they have paid, but that is behind them. They know better. So now you can literally keep your child on till 26 if you have health coverage. Pre-existing conditions are out. There's certain standard things that health exams you can get. And some people cry, well, we don't need certain things. Well, the whole idea is whether you need them or not, they are under the Act. So you may not need a mammogram, but you do need preventive care. And these people that had high deductibles like Purdue down in Georgia there, why do you have that? Well, Purdue is a multi-millionaire. He could pay for that. So in other words, look very, very carefully before you tread. Don't just take this anecdotal information, slapshot stuff from Fox. Nonetheless, this will do it for us. Happy Labor Day 2024 to everyone. We'll be back next week at other shows. And on the actual Labor Day, we'll have the Monday Morning Quarterback Check with the Boston Red Network. We have Numbers Man, where we talk about the economy. And then we have the Open Source Report. We've been talking about applications like CopWatch and some others to keep you safe and report the militarized
border. But
police,
now the first wave of National Guard troops deployed after Governor Rick Perry made the call are needing assistance paying for food and gas.
And as of today, she had requests from them for about 50 for food assistance and gasoline assistance and some things like that they have not gotten their paycheck, or there's some lag time or some overlap time.
They've turned to the local food bank for help since they won't get paid until September 5th and have been in the Rio Grande Valley since August 11th. President and CEO of the food bank RGV, Terry Drefke, says they are ready to assist the military personnel.
We do try to stock all types of food, from fresh to frozen to all types of shelf-stable food.
Local lawmakers got wind of the issue when we contacted them with our questions, and State Representative Renee Oliveda is appalled.
To have any of our men and women in uniform having to be in a food bank line is embarrassing for Texas.
He says the state dropped the ball on this one, and these troops should not have been placed in this kind of predicament.
To have them down here and to be treated with this kind of disrespect, it's the fault of the state of Texas, and I think there's going to be some serious consequences.
We waited at the food bank RGV for troops to show up today, but they did not. Drefke says it's a humbling experience for anyone to ask for help, but the food bank is opening their doors to the troops to come in and pick up groceries even after hours if need be.
Things happen. There's all kinds of crises that happen, and for some reason they don't have the funding in their pocket to buy food, and we obviously don't want them to go hungry.
We reached out to the National Guard for comment but did not hear back. We will keep asking questions from the state as to why this is happening. We were first to break this news to you. Let me know what you think about what's going on. I'm at facebook.com/Action4News. Marcy on Twitter at Marcy.
I don't think we're going to have any objection to hearing some words from a terrific social activist, a well-known actor, producer, conscience of the people of this country, out there with the Nissan workers trying to organize into the UAW in Mississippi. A product of postal worker parents who believes deep in his heart, as we do, that a government of, by, and for the people is really a government of, by, and for the working people primarily. Sisters and brothers, it is a tremendous honor to introduce to you, on behalf of all of you, on behalf of the Executive Board, Brother Danny Glover.
How are you doing, my brothers and sisters? My brothers and sisters from the APWU, American Postal Workers Union. Let me tell you how proud I am to be here. And I say that in the most humble way, how proud I am to be here with you this afternoon. I'm not going to tell you how I got here. That's irrelevant, but I'm here, and that's the most important. And there are some people to thank for that. There's Mark Dimmelstein, there's Liz, there's Tony, there's Debbie. They're the ones who made this happen. We had a simple meeting, and we talked about the state of the post office, the state of workers. And something is, in life you don't have, as you all know, you don't have control over when you were born or where you were born. You're born at that particular point in time under certain circumstances, and those moments can be historical in some way. I was born 68 years ago in San Francisco, California. That was the first step. But most importantly, what happened was when my parents became postal workers in 1948. Let me give some kind of context to this. The U.S. Armed Forces were desegregated in 1947. The federal workplace was desegregated in 1948. My parents came to the post office. My father, who had served in the military during World War II, my mother, who had graduated from a small college in rural Georgia and had found their way to San Francisco, and became postal employees. It literally set in motion circumstances that I didn't have control over. But one thing is that what I understood in the midst of a civil rights movement, that my mother and father, as a young child, were engaged in change. Not only had the demographics of the post office changed, bringing substance and bringing position and bringing jobs to African Americans for the first time in the public space. Not only had that changed, but it was in the midst of a great movement in this country as well. And really, if we look at labor and the expansion of the public service sector, the expansion of public workers, is right after World War II. So they came at the hest of this moment, this great moment in this country's history, providing and building a middle class, expanding infrastructure, building schools, building housing, building small business. All this was happening at this particular point in time. I was born into that. And because my parents lent their voice from the outset, my life was guided by their passion, guided by that wisdom, guided by their involvement, engagement. My life became guided by that. So this union of postal workers, I worked at the post office during those moments when you were able to work a week or two during Christmas, where they hired us who were high school students. My sister was a clerk and worked at the clerk at the post office before she went on to finish school and became a wonderful, wonderful elementary school teacher. My brother was a mail carrier. And so all of this was part of our family, but the groundwork is laid at the beginning with our parents. And what was so impressive for me as a young child, had such an impact on me, is the way they felt about the union. It was not just what they did, it's the way they felt about the union and making the workplace a better place, not only for my family, but for workers around the country. In fact, my father went to the conventions of the National Alliance of Postal Employees every year until he was 80 years old. More than 13, 14 years, 17 years after he had retired from the post office. That's how much he believed in the union. That's how much faith he had in the union, and I underline faith because the union represents that. Martin Luther King said the best anti-poverty program he'd ever known was the union. It was organized labor. So they have the opportunity to be here with you today. They not only talk about the past, because we know the past, there are great moments in this past, in this movement among organized labor. We had the AFL-WCO here today, this week. We had Reverend Barber here. We've had other leaders here from labor here. Because they know it's a moment right now, at this point in time, where we stick together. We got to come together, we got to stick together. We got to support each other. We got to build with each other. The old stories were great stories. The old stories of Filipinos coming to the workplace, coming to the post office, or Hispanics come to the post office, or others. Those are old stories. The immigrants coming to the post. Those are old stories, but we have new stories that we have to create. Those new stories are what we have to do here in the 21st century, because so much has changed. Automation has changed so much. The evisceration of power of labor unions, the attempt to compromise our one great victory, that of collective bargaining, is on the line. All those are the things that we have to still fight for. There's no time to rest. There's no time to lay down and rest on our laurels of generations ago. The time is now for us to create this new story. What does it look like? What does it look like? Because the post office is a national treasure. The first thing the Continental Congress set up was the post office. They understood the importance of people communicating, a new country communicating. They set up their post office. They established that. The first thing they did So we have to treat it as a national treasure, as a way in which a way in which citizens, because that's what we are too, citizens are introduced to the way in which